Hey, welcome everybody. Really excited to be with you today. This is just an awesome time to get together and take a break and then talk about some things that we are extremely passionate about here at Eide Bailey. This is a part of our nonprofit seminar webinar series. And so we're about halfway through that webinar series, and it's just been fantastic so far. We've got a few more left that we would invite you to join. And you know, we have a lot of industries that we service at Eide Bailey, and the nonprofit one has just been remarkable, the way that the last 2 years, just as service providers to this industry, we've just seen the last 2 years just be absolutely extraordinary in the pressure and also the response of all of you. And so right off the bat, just want to say thank you. The mission of your nonprofits, from education to healthcare to all of the various niches that fall under this category, just awesome. And we thank you for everything that you do. Today, we have 4 presenters. I am one of them. What the kind of the way the agenda is going to work is I'll go through some just high level things, and then we brought some people really to get tactical. And so Josh Haynes and Haley are here to really show you what the power of analytics is. We found that in these webinars, people really enjoy not just kind of the high level stage setting that I'll do, but really getting into the granular details, even though maybe the exact use cases that we'll demonstrate aren't exactly your use cases. We found that it's really good to just start the ideation of what data analytics can do for you and your organization and constituents. Oh, I thought I was going to introduce myself there. So I've got my slides a little mixed up. So introducing myself. So I'm Nathan McMurtry, and I lead the analytics practice here at Eide Bailey. You know, the path that I got into is, got a lot of people in the Office of Accountancy on this call. And so, you know, some of you may relate to this, but I was a staff accountant in my first job. And I was at a company and they hired somebody to come in and do this thing called business intelligence. And I thought, when I heard that, I thought, man, that is the coolest name I've ever heard for any job, business intelligence. And I had no idea what it meant, but I sat down with this individual and he talked to me about how he was going to take the organization's data and how he was going to help us analyze the customers of this organization and how we were going to help them be more profitable and make better decisions with that data analysis. And after a 10-minute conversation, I was hooked. I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever heard. So I went and begged my boss to be part of this new thing that company was doing, and very fortunate that they let me be part of that. And so, you know, just found a really fulfilling career in analytics. I thought, you know, what better way to start a webinar than a math problem? And so here first, for those of you looking for CPE, a bat and a ball together costs $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Is there sales tax? That's great. That is a good question.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and, you know, people are still answering, but it looks like majority are putting 10%, 10 cents.
Okay, yeah, I'll let you answer, and I'll set the table a little bit with this question. So this was a survey that I saw in the Wall Street Journal, and I just loved what this did, and it leads right into our conversation about analytics. And you know, if the answer was obvious, we wouldn't ask the question, right? This is like back to school. Okay, so the answers, it looks like about 70% of us said 10 cents, and 70% of us were wrong, which was actually, I think it was 80% of the people in the Wall Street Journal that said 10 cents. And the actual answer is, it's 5 cents. If the ball costs 5 cents and the bat costs $1.05, the total is $1.10. And I really like the quote so this is the quote of that article that the Wall Street Journal had. And it said, I'll just read it. When people face an uncertain situation, they don't carefully evaluate the information or look up relevant statistics. Instead, their decisions depend on mental shortcuts, which often lead to them making foolish decisions. The shortcuts aren't a faster way of doing the math. They're a way of skipping the math altogether. And that's what this data analytics is all about. We are people who believe that if we can slow down and analyze the data, that we can make fact-based decisions, that we can see what's actually happening, because our gut can sometimes, not all the time, but our gut can sometimes very much lead us in the wrong direction, give us the wrong answer. That uncertain situation, getting into just where we've been in the last year and a half, 2 years now with COVID. This is a quote from the Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella, who said, "We've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months." And he said this about June of last year. And it was just an extraordinary time that we saw, especially the nonprofit organization that depends so much on face-to-face, depends so much on fundraising, just an extraordinary time. And what we'll say on this is those organizations that invested in their technology, invested in their digital transformation before COVID hit, responded better than those that didn't. And that's part of the opportunity here for you on this call. There's a lot of pressure mounting for nonprofits right now. The rising demand for services, especially personalized services, whether those be in person or just personalized. We're seeing that across the board. The fundraising potential, especially during the COVID years, COVID year and a half, 2 years, being so dependent on the fundraising aspect of your business, of your organizations, definitely saw that as a pressure, and then just a lot of competition. And then where we come in, where there's just been this technology explosion. We've seen that this is an Accenture digital adoption report that talked about analytics specifically and how nonprofits seem to be lagging. Only 39% have taken up data analytics, but those that have, 83% are saying they're seeing significant gains and returns on that investment. And that's hopefully something that you can take away from this meeting with us today, is that if you make this investment in analytics, and we'll talk to you about how to make that as a smart investment, that you will see a significant return. So, the challenges of data, like, they are not insignificant right now. And I'll say what is driving these challenges is the massive number. It's really the systems that hold the data, and the number of systems that it takes to run an organization today, and the amount of data that flows through those systems. And what it does is it creates all of these. I'm not going to read all of these. I want to highlight the second one, which is the islands of data and disparate systems. You probably have seen that in your organization, where each system has different pieces of information, is handling something very specific for your, for that line of business, but it's not talking to each other. There's no one version of the truth about your constituents, about your data. There's, getting that all together into one spot is very difficult. The other one is rearview mirror versus forward looking. Everybody here has to run on financial statements as part of your charters. And financial statements, by virtue of what they are always rearview mirror looking. They're always a closed period. The organizations that we saw last, I'll say May, that were running off of financial statements alone, that was such a trying time that nobody knew the impact if all you had was financial statements. Those people who were getting, daily, hourly, by the minute updates of what the activity actually was happening in their organizations were the ones that were more nimble, and were the ones that were able to respond faster to the challenges. And so definitely when we talk about analytics, it's about looking out in front of the car and not just the rear view mirror. So that brings us to our second question, which is, how would you rate your organization use of data? Yeah, so we'll come back to that once we see all the answers. So I want to talk about the solution, and solutions are very customized, but I think there's some things that you can blanket state for analytics for everybody. And I really like this. This is a Gartner maturity model. Way too many words on this slide, but what I want you to take from it is that there are levels of maturity, and level 1 through level 5 is how Gartner decides to describe it. But you can kind of think about your organization and its individual journey of where you're at. And level 1 being spreadsheet anarchy. We run all of our analytics in spreadsheets, and there's really big files and a lot of manual processes that are happening in those spreadsheets to get the accurate data. What we would say is level 2 would look like is we're going to start introducing some visualization tools. We're going to get out of spreadsheets, and we're going to start bringing in some advanced analytics and visualizations, and talking about data automation within a process. Level 3 is where it really gets interesting, and this is where you start getting things. I'm going to talk about a data warehouse and a data lake, but you start centralizing the organization's data into one spot, so that everybody who needs to get data goes to one place and gets accurate data. Level 4 and 5, I'll just say those are both really, really transformative. We see this at really advanced. If you took your leading technology companies and what they're doing with data, it's pretty amazing the way they run their organizations. You could even say, organizations like Facebook or Uber or Airbnb. I mean, they don't have assets, they don't create content, they don't buy cars. What they do is they connect people with data, and so you can get really transformative with data. But what I would ask is where are you on this journey? And we'll see this answer here. But okay, so it looks like about 30% of us say we use data for every decision. Just awesome. And then 60% we use data if it's easily available. That's great. And so right there, we've got about 90% of us that are saying data is essential to the way we're running our organization. That's fantastic. One piece that I would ask you is the level 3. Have you made it to this point where all of the business executives in this thing, all of the executives in your organization, are they champions of your data? Meaning, is this seen as something the IT department does? Is this seen as something that, the IT, they hold servers and databases and they do all sorts of technical things. So this is an initiative of theirs. And if you do, I would challenge you to say, how can we get the entire executive team to be champions of the data of your organization? And it's very transformative when that stage happens, that everybody in that executive team says, hey, we've got to get our numbers aligned, we've got to get our key performance indicators. Really, really great things happen. So this is not meant to be an overly technical presentation. And so we love this analogy that analytics is a lot like a restaurant. If you can divide a restaurant up from a pantry to the kitchen to the dining room, just like food goes through these stages, so does data go through stages in an organization. And so the pantry, where food is raw, and that would be a lot like a data lake where we land raw data, meaning we would extract all of the data from our different systems and we'd land it in one centralized database, and we would call that a data lake. And that data is not transformed. It's got nothing done to it, but it's a way for the business to go and query and ask questions instead of going back to the various systems themselves. There's also an advanced analytics function that happens here, where a lot of data scientists today, they don't want the data transformed. They want it raw, flat, and just let me get my data and do my thing with it. So that's the data lake or pantry. The kitchen of a restaurant is a lot like a data warehouse. And just like a master chef is taking all of these raw ingredients and creating a dish for somebody, a data warehouse will take all of that raw data and apply all of the logic of the business. And so, if there's revenue that needs to be defined, if there's cash forecasts that need to be, logic in there, a lot of business logic, that all gets put into the data warehouse. And so when the data warehouse is finished, that's where you have this one version of the truth, that when people are writing reports, when they're asking questions about the business, they don't have to remember, how do we recognize unearned revenue? How do we account for this constituent whose funding is this way? There's all sorts of just unique business logic that's applied. And so they don't have to think of that. They can just think of asking the question and getting the answer. And then the last piece, the data visualization, is a lot like the dining room of a restaurant, where we really care about ambiance of a restaurant. We care about what it looks like. We care about that people are having a great experience. Data visualization or reporting is that. Do people understand the data that they're getting? Do people use the data that they're giving? Is this actually driving a return on the investment that we made in our analytics? And That's a lot of the questions that we ask there. You know, we when we first talked to a lot of organizations, it feels like somebody, you know, walked in with a big bag of beans and dropped it on the, you know, on the table in the dining room. And it's like, here, take this, you know, and that's the equivalent of just dropping a spreadsheet of just raw data and, hey, go do analysis. And it just, you know, there's a chunking of data and a process of taking data from a data lake to a data warehouse to data visualization that can really be transformative. I'm gonna move a little bit faster here. Just some favorite tools of ours. One of the most important things in the nonprofit world is keeping value ahead of cost. And the reason I put these tools on here is that these tools are all absolutely fantastic at keeping value ahead of cost. The advent of the cloud is this thing where now I can, instead of having one big sunk cost on a thing, I can go and start out for very, very small amounts of investment. So I'll take Power BI as a $10 a user per month start. Actually, you can start out for free with their desktop. And so somebody can go and start building things and creating value for the organization. And then as soon as there's, hey, we've actually got something here, then we can start talking about how to scale it up with costs. And some of these tools I have on here are technical database things, but they work the same way, where you pay for what you use. You start as small as a few dollars per month, and you start getting up to, you know, much higher costs. Don't get me wrong, some of these tools can be extremely expensive on the high end, but it's only after they've scaled up and are delivering value. And I think that's an exceptionally important point to make for your group, that we can keep value ahead of cost with these tools. And you can keep up with kind of the digital revolution that's happening in other industries. I wanted to spend a minute just talking about the Office of Accountancy, because there's so many things with watching the world of analytics and accounting kind of merge, and they're definitely coming together. If you could you could Google this question at any time and get 1,000 articles that kind of say the same thing. This was one that Gardner said, and I just bolded the things that related to analytics. And so there are so many things that are happening that the CFO and the Office of Accountancy have to keep their eye on here with what is happening, and just a lot of analytical topics happening. For those of you that are CPAs, this is interesting for you, that the next group of CPAs that's coming up, you know, they're talking about emphasis of the CPA. I have a business reporting and analysis emphasis, or I have a tax and planning, or I have an information systems and controls emphasis. And all of that is built around, especially that reporting and analysis, that's built around what we're seeing at Eide, where this world of analytics and this world of CPA, sorry, not just CPAs, but accountancy or accountants are coming together. Excuse me. All right, and this one's a good one for you know, we're a professional services firm, but if you can think of yourself as personally where you're headed in your career path, you know, 95% of an accountant's or tax expert's job is eventually going to become automated. That's a very startling statistic for the kind of the profession. I graduated in accounting, so I can pick on myself too. And then as you move over, you know, fewer auditors are being hired. We've seen a lot of statistics at Eide Bailey, which maybe you've seen, that fewer CPAs are being created now. Fewer people are being licensed than ever before, which is a pretty stark contrast. You know, that from 2000 to 2010, it was growing like crazy, and now we're seeing it leveled off, and it's actually decreasing. And so where are those jobs going? And I'll just switch over to that far right corner and say professional business services, and meaning we're being seen in the Office of Accountancy to become more consultative in our services. And we saw that with the CFO, especially over the last 20 years, that we've seen them being needed to be more consultative in the organization. No longer is it, this is the group that creates the financial statement. Now it's, this is a member of the executive decision-making committee, and that it's still an analytical exercise. The CFO is really being seen as kind of the chief data officer in a lot of organizations, and being seen as, hey, tell us what operationally is happening so we can get more efficient, get more effective. Eide Bailey made this investment. So we are a tax and audit, CPA firm, and we took over the last 2 years, we've had 20 individuals that we've taken from tax and audit, and we've upskilled them with analytics to really, really great success. It's amazing what very smart individuals can do when they get some time to be upskilled in analytics. And think about your organization in the same way. Who is it that are these people on we've upskilled are some of our favorite people in the firm. They're just absolutely fantastic. And if you looked at your group and said, who are the up and comers, who are the rising stars, and what can we do to make sure we not just retain them, but make sure that their career path is fulfilling, analytics is a very, very good way to go down that path. All right, and so we have another CPE question, and it's really about your personal career. How important do you think analytics is to your personal career? And I can keep going again, Amy?
Yeah, that's fine. Go right ahead.
Okay, great. Go ahead and answer that. We've got a lot we want to show you, and I'm just wrapping up kind of the slide part of our presentation here. The first one I'm going to pitch to is Josh Haynes. So Josh Haynes is one of our senior consultants in the analytics department, and he's going to demonstrate a few tools here. And as we kind of pivot to this section, I just do want to say, we're going to show you a few tools, and don't take this as us saying these tools are the best tools for your organization or anything like that. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to open your mind to what data automation, what data analytics and data visualization can do. And so there's a lot of choices here, but please just keep in mind, we're trying to just spark some ideas for your organization.
Awesome.
Josh, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Nate. I'll go ahead and if you can let me share my screen here. I'm happy to be here today with all of you. I am going to be, as Nathan mentioned, I'm going to be talking about two of the softwares that we use here at Eide Bailey, and which the exchangers whose pictures you saw, and you're going to hear a couple of them today. They learned these tools, and they were able to pick up these tools within 3 months. So think about it, no technical experience, and now they're creating some solutions that you're going to be able to see later on in this webinar. Pretty exciting stuff. So I'm just going to introduce the tools to us so we know what we're looking at. First of all, I wanted to mention that Alteryx and Tableau both have nonprofit offerings. So if you can get licenses at a discount, or you can get licenses for free in some cases. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, just Google Alteryx for nonprofits, Tableau for nonprofits, and you'll see some stuff like this, some stories of nonprofits who are using these softwares, which is pretty cool. So what is Alteryx? This is Alteryx. This is called Alteryx Designer. And what you're looking at, there's a lot going on here, but first of all, up here on the top, we have some different tools that we can use. So these basically, you can think of them as Excel functions that you're gonna run on your data. Over here in the middle, we have our canvas, and then on the left and on the bottom, we have some information about our data. So all you need to do is kind of just drag and drop some data into here. Actually, I'll get an easy one for us to work with here. Sample data. So we're looking here, maybe we have an Excel spreadsheet or we have a database. We can easily drag and drop or connect into that data. And it won't let me do it while I'm presenting. Apologies for that. So once you load your data, you're able to simply drag and drop tools on the canvas. If you want to filter, you want to have a formula in there. If you're looking for a VLOOKUP, you can use the join tool. You have a union tool, summarizations, and pivot tables. So there's all kinds of great things that you can do with Alteryx. And you can see if I go to a completed example, let's go to this one, asset and liability reconciliations. This is kind of what a completed example looks like. So you can kind of see the flow going from right to left, or left to right, excuse me. And so you'll see that we have our input data coming in here. These might be Excel files. Here we have connection to a database. And then it's going to go through some data preparation and data blending. We're joining the data together, the assets and liabilities. and then we're joining that with the audit data, and then we're doing some reconciliation, and then we can output directly to an Excel file, directly to a database, or right into Tableau. So if I were to hit run, it'll run through it. It won't output because they haven't set up the outputs quite yet, but you'll see that it took seconds to run, maybe 1 second to run this. And if you think about it, if you think about the process that you would go through just using spreadsheets or Excel, it may take you a couple minutes to do this, or maybe in some cases an hour, a couple hours. With Alteryx, once you have this workflow set up, you hit run, it's done in a couple seconds, and then you can reuse it when you have a new month, a new week, whenever you want to do the analysis again. You just hit run, and it will automatically go through all the logic. So there's time savings through this automation process. Another workflow. Yeah.
Can I point out to you, Josh? Yeah, the time savings is awesome. And then just also, if you've ever gotten that Excel spreadsheet that has all these nested what ifs or if thens, and then they've got a lot of pivot tables that are connected, being able to see what's being done with the data is so valuable from a documentation standpoint, from an auditability standpoint. It's really nice to just see everything flat and what's been actually changed.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely, I have dealt with my fair share of 6 nested if loops, and all kinds of crazy formulas within Excel. You're able to break those out into coherent, understandable logic using a tool such as Alteryx, which is really helpful. And so this is just this is called cash flow forecasting workflow that Alteryx has built. So again, we have our data access over here. It goes through some data preparation. Here's a VLOOKUP going on right there. And then we're joining that data together and we're creating an income statement. And with the time savings of this, since we don't have to do the same logic every single time, this manual process, we can use that time savings to do some predictive analytics. Alteryx makes it really easy to drag and drop some predictions onto the canvas. So if you want to forecast sales into the future, you can do that using your historical data. Switching gears real quick, I'm going to show you Tableau, which is a data visualization software. And the great thing about Tableau is that it's fully customizable to your needs. You can just, I'm just going to be showing you a couple of visuals that may give you some ideas of what you can visualize with your data. And so here we have some obesity data based on United States counties. And I think this data is a little bit old, but if I were to select all that data, and I can hover over it, and if you're more comfortable with a spreadsheet, you want to do some analysis that way, you can easily do that here. I just created a spreadsheet from the map data, and you can download it as a text file and analyze it in Excel. So you went from a map into a spreadsheet. Some other quick visualizations you could look at. Here's a dot plot. Here is a heat map about global temperatures. We got some flight delays. We have economy. We have stocks. So you might be looking at this like, oh, this is just a bunch of pretty pictures. That is true, but the way you design these visuals really lends itself to how you can interpret them quickly and make better decisions. If we go back to the first question that Nate asked at the beginning, if you had a Tableau dashboard that answered that question for you, you'd be able to quickly answer that question instead of thinking in your head or trusting your gut and getting the wrong answer. So that is what I wanted to show with Alteryx and Tableau. And now we get into the meat of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Haley to show you a nonprofit example of using these tools. Go ahead, Haley.
Perfect. Thank you, Josh and Nate. As they both mentioned, I was one of those exchangers. So I actually am technically part of the audit practice here at Eide Bailey, but I've spent a lot of time over the summer learning a lot more about data analytics and just carrying that forward when I can. So I work with a lot of not-for-profit organizations through audit, and one area that I know is pretty complicated for a lot of organizations is federal grant tracking. I found that a lot of organizations would love to know the status of their grants, but it's not always that simple, or they don't have a live view. And so the solution that I've created kind of helps to see that grant tracking in a visualization. we ideally could use a tool like Tableau or Alteryx and link directly to the accounting software like Josh showed. You can use Alteryx to link to a database or an export from your accounting software. And so that's what helps give you that live view of your grant status. So I'll go ahead and share my screen to show Tableau. Okay, can we all see that? Perfect.
Yep, we see it.
So this first sheet is kind of a big overview picture of all the grants that an organization could have. If you're someone who's been through audits and a single audit, you have lots of federal grants, this would be really helpful in preparing your schedule of federal expenditures or the CFA. So you can see we have grouped by granting agency and then the CFDA number, which is also related to federal grants. And then you dive down into the individual awards. So we have, award A2, and you can see when it starts, when it ends, and then the total budgeted amount from that contract. So this one's just really nice to get that big picture of how many grants do we have, when do they start, when do they end, sort of thing. This next tab is showing the days remaining, as of today. So in Tableau, you can make all sorts of customizations, like Josh mentioned. This one, I've created a custom formula to say, we knew that the end date was in September of 2021, and so how many days are remaining? And that just shows you by each grant, again, that time frame. This next tab is really custom to the client that this solution was built for. So they have a visual just like this that they're tracking in a spreadsheet. And so I wanted to replicate and show how you could do that with Tableau. It has all the same information as the previous tab, showing that agency, the award number, and then it's showing the expenditures over time. So this is how much we've expended towards that grant, by month and each year. I think this is really helpful to see something like trends. Are we expending a bunch in certain months or specific years? And then I've also added kind of that heat map like Josh showed before. And the heat map is actually showing how much remaining budget there is. So these red ones right now, we've actually overexpended, we've coded too many expenses to this grant. Then that's probably something that you would want to dive into, versus like this dark green is saying this grant still has a lot of remaining budget. And so make sure we're also paying attention to expend that way. This is a different view to show that same thing about how much of the budget have we used, how much is the budget. So these thick gray bars are showing our total budget, and then the thin orange is showing how much has been expended up to date. And these little labels are showing you really quickly how much budget do we have left. So again, you can quickly kind of spot if we've overexpended. You can dive into that and start to understand, did I code something there that I didn't want to, or did we just not have enough budget this year? Kind of insights like that. And lastly is I've made a dashboard which kind of combines multiple of the visuals that I previously showed. And this is just nice to see the correlation if you want to view multiple pieces at one time. So if I want to see for the granting agency one, here's all the time remaining for each of those grants, or you can drill down even further. So Tableau makes it really quick to visualize, like I said, that grant tracking. It also helps with the financial reporting through something like this grant details if you need to make that CFA. And then, I didn't include it in this demo, but as Josh showed, you can also have other capabilities with Tableau, such as if you want to go here and say, okay, what's making up this 89,000? You can drill down kind of like a pivot table in Excel and find out really quickly what's making this up, why are we overexpended, things of that nature. And that's all I have for this not-for-profit demo on the grant tracking.
Thank you, Haley. All right, so next up, we have a recorded presentation from one of our other exchangers. She wasn't able to make it to today's webinar, but she recorded a presentation of a hospital pricing model. So this is for the healthcare folks on the call. So this hospital pricing model is used to assist organizations in establishing a competitive and defensible pricing policy. And so what our exchanger did, Nicole, is she was able to take a prior solution that they had using Excel, and it was a very cumbersome type of solution. The client didn't really understand what was going on in the Excel solution, and so she moved it into Tableau for a much more I would say, enjoyable experience for the clients. And so as you watch this webinar or this presentation, be keeping that in mind. So let me share this along with my sound. Let me know if it is not working.
File this Excel spreadsheet. We get multiple reports from the client, their charge master and their revenue and usage. And then we're also pulling the market data from a database. So I went in Alteryx, and essentially what this is doing is VLOOKUPs, pivots that we would do in Excel to get to this end product here, and then spitting out the data as I want it in a form that I can build dashboards then in Tableau. This is specific to the hospital that I used for creating this capstone project, but our idea is that we would set up a workflow in Alteryx for each different electronic health record. So maybe there would be a workflow for Epic. And then when we get the files for an Epic client, it's easy to input those here. There's not a lot of manual intervention that needs to happen then to get that information all joined together. So what that looks like here in Tableau, this is sort of the first landing dashboard. This is their results summary. You can see net revenue increase, gross revenue increase, overall charge variance. These filters or parameters over here allow you to pick, do you want to be at market, 10th percentile, and you can see all the numbers here switching. Usually there's just a 3% increase every year, but if for some reason they wanted 3.5, they can come in here and switch that. They can look at this by department, which is usually important, and that's what that heat map is showing here, revenue impact by department. And then they can also look at it here by revenue code group, which is something that spreadsheet did not provide before, but we made up these groupings here because that's also an insightful way to look at this data. So then we move on to a code analysis. So this is looking by specific service on their charge master. Usually we, when we give the results, we talk about those with an increase over 40%. But what I wanted to do here is also show a net revenue impact. It doesn't just mean if that code increases over 40% that there's good revenue impact there for changing the price of that service. So here you can see services that would have opportunity. They would stand out over here. Something else that Excel worksheet didn't provide that we want to provide is looking at the ER levels. So you always want to see this sort of as a waterfall. You don't want your level 1 service to be higher in price than your level 4. So this is validating that. It's also showing if there's any net revenue impact with changing the price. And then again, you can come over here and change the percentiles or the fixed percent option. Another thing to look at is the weighted sensitivity. So again, usually we would come here to this spreadsheet, sort it, what's the highest charge sensitivity by code, but this dashboard allows you to look at it not just by code, but by revenue code group. And something to take into account is even if the charge sensitivity is high, if there isn't any volume, you don't have much opportunity there. So what this graph here is showing you is that here in pharmacy, that's probably your biggest opportunity because there's volume here. Even though the weighted sensitivity is high here in room and board, the volume's lower, not as much opportunity. This is pretty much showing the same thing with the sensitivity, with the volume. And then if you click here, you can actually see your revenue impact for that specific service. Again, come over here, pick the percentile you want to be at. So here's where we compare to market. So these are different percentiles. This price here is on their current charge master. So this line is just sort of showing them where they fall. Here's where they can pick different CPTs to change that. And then once they say, oh, okay, I like the 75th percentile, they could click here and again, show their net revenue impact if that's where they wanted to be. And then lastly, this is the CPT comparisons by their peer groups that they pick. So again, they can come over here, pick which code they want to look at and see how they compare to peers in their area. And then for those people that like to look at things in Excel format, this is essentially that workbook but it looks a little bit prettier, but they can jump over here and still look at it in sort of that Excel format and filter how they please.
Right. That was Nicole's presentation. Hope you enjoyed that webinar inception, webinar of a webinar.
I had some great questions come in, and this is a great time to type any questions that you may have, and we'll just start going through those. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes here, and so Carlin had a great question about, she says, do any of the data tools listed include an include an accounting feature? If not, is there a list of accounting software that integrates with Tableau? So the way that the softwares work is they all of these tools that we've seen integrate with almost any database, including Excel. And I call Excel a database because it's columns and rows of data. And so if you have a source of data, whether that be QuickBooks or whether that be an Excel file, these tools have a connection feature. And Josh, maybe you mind just taking a second and maybe, I don't know, Alteryx or Tableau, whichever one you're most capable of doing on the call, but just they connect to any number of thousands of different softwares. They're very good at talking to all of the different sources of data.
Yes, Amy, if you could let me share.
Sure thing.
So this is a demo data set. You can see it just has order ID, order date, some very simple data. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. So this can be taken out of a QuickBooks or whatever kind of software you're using. Preferably, we love to connect to databases, but Excel files are just fine. And so when we come to Tableau, all we need to do is kind of add a data set. We click here, we can click Microsoft Excel or a text file. And then if I go to where it's located, you can see that this is the Excel file that I just had pulled up. And when I pull it in, I pulled it in previously. You can see the different sheets. We got orders, people, returns. You can drag them onto the canvas, and this looks exactly like your spreadsheet, but now it is in Tableau. And so then you come over to a worksheet, and if I clear it out, you can kind of just bring stuff onto the canvas. So if you have categories and profit, you just kind of bring it on here. Oh, you want to make it a bar chart? Awesome. There's your bar chart. So it's very easy, quick drag and drop type of tools.
So that also hopefully helped out with, thank you, Josh. Mary had a similar question, which is she just wanted to see it happen. And hopefully, Mary, that was instructional. The other question Mary had was, she says, will EB auditors start showing more analytics in their audit presentations to boards? Absolutely. These tools that we're showing today is really, like I'll go back to what I said earlier, where the profession of an accountant, whether it be tax or audit and analytics, are just merging, and the tools are making a tremendous amount of leverage. I'd say they're making us more valuable as auditors, as tax accountants, and also just everything else that falls under that office of accountancy. Everybody is getting, the more upskilled with these tools, the more leverage they can create, the greater the product that they can do. And so definitely it's something that you'll see more of from the Eide Bailey team. So Bridget asks, how much experience do you need within Excel using VLOOKUP and pivot tables to be able to use them in Alteryx or Tableau? Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say we can ask Haley or Amandeep to answer that one.
That's a great one. Haley, we'll let you answer this one. How much experience do you need with Excel and VLOOKUP pivot tables?
So I would say that I love Excel, so I did have a really big familiarity with it. But tools like Alteryx, they have a really great online community. So almost anything, while I was learning the tool, I can Google Alteryx pivot table, and it will, there's tons of people who have asked your question already. You can go through and see solution workflows that other people have made. So I think, more so it's actually just learning Alteryx. If there's something you want to do with this tool, then you can go find a way to do it. And a lot of times they're similar to how Excel does it, but you don't necessarily need that Excel background.
Awesome. So is it, Joel says, is it common to need more than one tool? You know, the bigger the organization, it's absolutely amazing the number of, you probably see this, the number of just softwares introduced. You can create a little bit of chaos by introducing too much software, and I go beyond just analytics. But what we find is there are tools that are best for different problems. And so it's common to see many tools in organizations. It's not common to see a lot of visualization tools. Usually people pick one to kind of go with. So they pick a Tableau, they pick a Power BI. The data preparation tools, like we're showing you Alteryx, there's a lot of other great tools out there as well. You'll see a handful of those depending on where the data is coming from and what people want to do, and especially how sophisticated and technical the team is that's going to be doing that data preparation. The tools we're showing today is very, they're built for smart but non-technical people. And there are some tools where people get more technical and it kind of lends more to them. Great question. Can you create dashboards with any of these softwares? So we're trying to show you some back-end tools like Alteryx that isn't necessarily about dashboarding, but there is kind of some data science, advanced analytics where you can predict, kind of prediction software and data preparation. And then another set of tools that we call visualization tools that's all about the charting, the dashboarding, and the kind of the analysis piece, if that makes sense. Excel would go in that category as well. What factors lead you to a data analytics tool such as Alteryx, Tableau, Domo? So we've got somebody who knows Domo, that's a new one we haven't mentioned, versus a planning tool with dashboard capabilities such as Workday Adaptive. Yeah, this is a great question. I was hinting at this just barely because different tools are built for different things. So we've seen people do their FP&A, so their financial planning in Tableau, for instance. It wouldn't necessarily be the bread and butter of Tableau, but if an organization didn't want to make an investment into an adaptive, for instance, and they wanted to just use their analytics visualization tool, we've seen people do that, but it's not as good as what I would say an adaptive. So your adaptive is really good at the drivers of the business. So being able to just say, hey, we expect growth at 3%, or we expect churn at this percent, and then getting a result. Adaptive is very, very good at that kind of thing, where like a Tableau, like getting the data in and getting it back out isn't so immediate, if you would. And so there's definitely a need for both, especially as the organization gets larger. We were looking at Fathom. Do you know if this has the same functionality as Tableau? I don't. Kelly, I don't know if Josh, you've heard of Fathom.
I have heard of Fathom. Fathom, I believe, if I understand correctly, is more geared towards a very specific use case. Tableau is very much a general, it can be applied to anything. So the short answer would be yes, because Tableau can do basically everything that Fathom can do.
Okay. Yeah, and it's we're trying to make things a little bit simple here by the way we're classifying these tools, but you wouldn't believe the different kind of tools that are out there and the problems that they solve. It's a fantastic time to be in analytics, and I would say what's really nice is there's tools that are specifically meant for your use case in your organization. If the database is stored on the accounting vendor's servers, how does the BI tool access it? So if you're talking about a server, you would need to have a way to access that server. And so we've handled this for many clients where we go and it's just what it's called is opening up a port on a server, so that, and then there's an access account that we would need, and then you can go through the server's port and access the data. So we see this like if you had QuickBooks Desktop, for instance, on a server, or Sage 100 on a server, we would just open up a port or ask the vendor to open up a port so that we could connect your Tableau to that accounting software, and then you can do the analytics, but totally doable. All right, Josh, I'm answering all the questions. You get one too.
Yeah, do any of the analytic tools mentioned include a CRM feature? So kind of similar to my previous answer, you can bring that data into these tools and do your analysis. But CRM, if I'm not mistaken, that would be kind of like a Salesforce type thing. Tableau and Salesforce talk very well together because Salesforce purchased Tableau. So yes, basically, if you have data, these tools can help you. That's the great thing about analytics. And then Nate, there's a couple questions in the chat.
Yep, and I'm going to do the 1 minute version because I don't want to have everybody go long here. And just let me first say thank you for attending. And I know a lot of people will have to drop off, but appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. And so Patty asks, is the EB offering us this service of setting up financial reports in Tableau, or even better, is EB now offering clients training on how to manage their own? That's exactly what we do. Is we're kind of like walking along the bike until you're ready to pedal on your own. And so, your specific financial statements, your specific analysis, we're very good at getting that set up for you, and training and upskilling your people and your team is a very important part of that, so that you can pedal on your own eventually. Tim asks, if the database is stored on the accounting software, we got that on the other one. And is that the last one? Did I catch it?
I think that was it. Yes.
All right. Appreciate it, everybody. That was a great hour. Thank you so much. And please reach out. Here's some contact information. We love one-on-one contact. There's a lot of, specific use case things that I'm sure you're kind of going through your head right now. And we'd be more than happy to talk through that with you and answer your questions. So thank you, everybody.